Welcome everybody here, Brady from BGWX, and we are back here for another Tropics breakdown, and there's a lot to cover going on. My first video, for whatever reason, would not upload, so I got to keep this a little bit more concise, but there's a lot that's been happening since I tried to upload that, and we have to discuss what's going on currently right now in real time, so I don't want to overreact or anything, but I also want to keep a close eye on what is currently going on, and we'll break that down in a second. But in other in other breaking news, Hurricane Erin, I said it would take at least till daylight yesterday to become a hurricane. Indeed, it did. It took its time, and then once it did, kind of steady, a little bit of held its ground, and then once it got to D-max tonight, Hurricane Erin just has absolutely exploded. It is now a 120-mile-per-hour major hurricane, according to the National Hurricane Center's estimate, 955 millibars as well. And Recon's about to go in to try to confirm it being close to this as we speak. And we'll go back and show you. Recon is about to go in to try to confirm that this is the case right now. I'm not sure if this is accurate or not. Or they're just not quite in the center yet. Okay, so they're getting there, but they're going in to try to confirm that this is the case, that it is a 120-mile-per-hour hurricane. Based on the satellite presentation, it's hard to disagree with their estimate, and that would be 20-mile-per-hour increase in strength in just 3 hours. That's ridiculously impressive. 45-mile-per-hour increase in 12 hours and 50 miles per hour in 24 hours, well exceeding the thresholds for rapid intensification. But one thing I'm watching very closely right now is if we take a look at what's been going on, I will slide to current storm, so yes, this works, and you will take a look here. Notice, right, that expected west-northwest movement has now turned into almost a west-southwest movement we just had, and now it's back to almost a due west, I would say. And so this it's more than a wobble too. It's actual steady movement for about almost a couple hours now of either being west-southwest or due west in terms of moving, and I believe we actually lost a little bit of latitude, technically speaking, adhering to that west-southwest movement for at least a short period of time, if not pretty close to due west. So this is something to watch, and I saw an image that it showed the radar, the center of the storm, basically outside of the cone that the National Hurricane Center, either the 11 p.m. or the 5 a.m., I couldn't tell which one it was, but basically outside of the cone. So very concerning to keep an eye in at least the short term, because look at what's going on in the Leeward Islands right now. Northern Leeward Islands are getting smoked with heavy rainfall that I just tweeted not too long ago. I mean, consistent cold cloud tops, minus 70, minus 80 degrees, thunderstorms persisting, very dangerous potential torrential rainfall going on, with those tropical downpours consistently falling over these locations, and could be some serious flooding concerns. It would not be surprised, unfortunately, if there was some loss of life as a result, if we could see this continue. And now with this more than a wobble, I guess is what I would call it, this puts Puerto Rico back into concern here. I mean, if we weren't looking at Puerto Rico to potentially see some massive impacts, but we're looking at potential significant heavy flooding rainfall, and considering the mountainous terrains, I would say floods, mudslides could be a concern as well if we were to continue to see this southern blob of convection be able to move its way west, and it's just getting bigger as we speak right now, that blob of convection. So more of the Leeward Islands getting into it. You can see that feeder band forming on the south side as well. So it's a 120-mile-per-hour major hurricane, if not somewhere close to that, if the National Hurricane Center estimate was off, if not possibly stronger. It could be. It's possibly conservative, so it's hard to say at the moment. Satellite presentations can sometimes be a little bit deceiving, but regardless, you can see the eye has now cleared itself out in this process. It is a major hurricane versus just being a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm at just 24 hours ago when we were recording this. A little bit more than that, I guess, but still very significant hurricane that is just struggling to get to 20 degrees north right now. Very much struggling to do so. So we have to keep a close eye, and how long does this whether it not even if it's not west southwest movement, how long does this due west movement continue? Because then we start looking at the potential for the Bahamas, or was this due west movement for long enough, a big enough concern, to potentially, even if it is a west northwest movement, eventually again, this would cause some concern for potential areas, in the southeast Bahamas near Turks and Caicos, for example. I'll have to keep a close eye. It is not moving. It was not moving west northwest for the last couple of hours. I think, technically, but technically not. 20 miles per hour the movement as well, so you can see very powerful major hurricane that's going to rack up a lot of ace as well. But in terms of where this thing is going, I think we have to keep a close eye and use the Euro AI, for example. The ensemble will go to 500 millibars, so we have to keep a close eye again on how things progress. As you can see, Euro AI is showing that, a little bit more westward movement, maybe more than some of these models were for overnight. So I think I'll use this as an example. But notice the farther you get out, the bigger the spread. But in the short term, we have to keep an eye on, like we said, Puerto Rico for potential impacts. Again, flooding, rain. But then Hispaniola, we'll have to keep a close eye. I'm not as confident, but we'll have to keep a close eye on Hispaniola. And then notice a little bit of a spread develops where the center could get rather close to Turks and Caicos and also to the southeastern Bahamas as well. So we'll have to keep, like I said, I'm using it a lot, but we do have to keep a close eye on how things are progressing right now, and that spread starts to increase. So here's what I start watching over the next couple days. As I go to 500 height, we have to keep we have to be monitoring closely how this progresses. What's the strength of the ridging out over the Atlantic, because this is going to play a significant role. How strong is this ridge here? Again, looking at the weakness in the weakness in the ridging here, like we talked about, this little bit of these below average height anomalies. This troughing here, how close does this able to get to the storm to be able to allow this to pull further north, potentially pull further north in latitude, or is this further away a little bit, this system here, and that allows this thing to tuck a little bit more effectively, like we've been talking about. And if that's the case, and especially if it's the stronger this thing becomes too, you have to remember the slower the speed will become. It's going to start to slow down more. So the speed and the intensity of the storm, once we get into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, will be a huge factor, because if it's unable to pull as far north latitude, eventually, notice what could happen is it could feel a little bit less of an influence, for example, from our retrograding upper level low out here. And this could allow for enough ridging to build back in further northeast as well, so stronger ridging to build back in. But also, if it's further away, it's going to feel less and less of the influence here of the troughing that's going on. And if it's further tucked away as well, it's just going to take more time to get north. So eventually, when it does turn north, even when it does, that angle, since this is further away, will now potentially allow for more significant impacts for the East Coast even. And if it's vice versa, let's say if it's more impactful and it's closer, then we're looking at more significant impacts for Bermuda. So, the hope is it stays between the uprights and it avoids either way. But regardless, in both, there's multiple ways for this storm to cause problems for people on land. So this is something we have to keep a close eye on. But notice the spread, too, that does continue to develop the farther you get out. There's more of a I'll use 500 Vort a little bit better as an example. Notice the spread that develops. Some members showing even a landfall onto the Outer Banks. Other members showing a very close approach that would get the dirty side of the storm, the right quadrant of the storm, very close, if not impacting Bermuda. So there's still a lot of time left for models to figure themselves out. And where it's passing, this is a place where a lot of times we've seen this impact Bahamas, southeastern United States, where it's passing relative to climatology. So we have to keep that in mind as well when we're forecasting the system. All these little pieces that go into play. So I'm keeping a lot of things in mind. Again, like I said, we're keeping a close eye on things, but I'm keeping in mind all these different factors that could play a part in how this storm it could impact people down the line. So I'm keeping all things in mind. Again, I would say um, a landfall in the U.S. is not necessarily the most likely scenario as of now. But again, I think we're still at a distance from this thing for me to not be super confident where exactly it's heading and what potential direct impacts could look like. I have no confidence in that right now, so to say. I don't even have full confidence in the Bahamas due to the, we have to figure out eventually what the storm size, yeah, if it is going to be more compact or a larger system as it passes by. That could play a huge factor. So there's a lot of different things that I'm watching right now that I think could play a significant role on potential impacts for people living on land and not in the ocean. Obviously, we do not have an Atlantis for people to go, or the imaginary Atlantis you see in the movies, where actually underwater. So, no, obviously nobody lives there, but point remains, have to keep a close eye on how this thing, how Hurricane Erin progresses, now major hurricane, because this any small shifts at this point could have significant impacts down the line. Because remember, like I said, if it's just enough tucked, so to say, and enough away from the steering currents enough, that could change a lot of things down the line, right? This is a very, I would say, volatile forecast, even though we're within potentially 5-6 days from U.S. impacts, so to say. So I'm keeping a close eye on how things progress. But in the meantime, that's all I had to add, because I want to make sure I can get this video out. Again, major hurricane Erin now at this point, 120 miles per hour is the estimated intensity, and it very well could be a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane, rather sooner than later, I guess, at this point. And we'll have to keep an eye on how strong this could eventually get. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and until tomorrow night, we could do a live stream potentially, depending on how things evolve. If not, I'd expect another YouTube premiere. Peace, everybody.